Can the Auburn Tigers keep it rolling versus the Georgia State Panthers? Let's talk about it right now. Let's get inside the town.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to The War Report, Longtown Podcast. With your boy, Ike Jones.
Yes, indeed. Auburn Express here, Lobtown Podcast inside of the War Report Podcast Network. Auburn versus Georgia State going down inside of Neville Arena today. Make sure that you guys are tuned in and ready for this game. Auburn is looking to go advance to 10-1. Of course, the only loss in the season coming at the hands of the Duke Blue Devils inside of Cameron Indoor Arena. But we're going to talk a little bit about this game. It's not a game that I anticipate Auburn having a bunch of struggles in, but do want to highlight some of the things that could be potential pitfalls and things that you should anticipate during this game. We take a look at the matchup between these two teams, and Auburn comes out ahead in most of the statistical categories. If you look at points for 87.4, Auburn's outscoring them by 10 points per game right now, holding opponents to 13 less points per game. It's a little under 13 less points per game at 65.7 versus 78. Shooting a better field goal percentage, 50.5% on the season. Shooting better from the free throw line at 75.8 versus 68.4 on the season. Rebounding, Auburn has a slight advantage on rebounding. This is one of the things Coach Pearl talked about in his presser. If you haven't seen it, that's live on the channel. This is a team that has some good interior size, so they're going to be able to bang down on the boards. And Auburn's going to have to make sure that they are limiting the second chance opportunities from a team that's going to want to be scrappy down there in that way. But 39.8 versus 39.4. The assist rate, Auburn is assisting on more buckets this season, 18.7 to 11.8. Auburn has more blocks per game at 6.3 versus 2.2. Even though they have some big bodies down there, not a bunch of intimidating shot blockers on their team. And then steals per game, Auburn's leading that 6.3 to 5.9. The ESPN matchup predictor says Auburn has a 99% chance of winning this game. Georgia State coach Jonas Hayes has coached this team well, but they are off to a 4-6 record and have struggled a little bit, particularly on the road so far this season. So got a lot of work left to do to get them into a better place, and they've matched up against some SEC teams so far this season already, taking on Mississippi State. That game, Mississippi State scored 101 points on them. So Auburn's going to definitely, in order to feel as if they've done their job, need to go out there and put triple-digit score up on the board right there. So Kentucky also put up 105 on this team at home. So, Auburn needs to go out there and put an impressive showing if they want to continue to have people feel as if this is the best team in the country. You've got to put away teams like this that have already come up against some SEC foes, and you see them and you can look at the comparative things there between the two and determine kind of how you stack up against common opponents. When you look at the statistical leaders for each of these teams, Janai Broome leading Auburn in points, rebounds, assists, and block shots per game. Tahad Pettiford still holding down the steals there per game for Auburn. For Georgia State, Nutter is the leading scorer for the team. McMullen, the leading rebounder. If you all remember, Auburn actually played a game in which against UNC Asheville last year. McMullen was one of the big men on that team last year, transferred to Georgia State. So 2 years in a row, he's having to face Auburn. Brown is the assist leader there and the steals leader, their point guard. Very talented. And then the block shot leader is Edwards for the Georgia State Panthers. This is, again, a game where Auburn has a lot of advantages, and Janai Broome is probably, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they try to play Janai Broome early, because I do feel as if early they're going to try to mix it up. When I previewed the Richmond game, I thought that was primarily going to be a lot of double teams, and that's exactly what you saw. Janai Broome able to assist out of that stuff. Same thing with the Ohio State game. Expected a lot of double teams. I think Georgia State is going to throw some mixed coverages. They're going to try to play them one-on-one a little bit with their bigs because they think they have a size matchup that will work. And I think the big matchup, the Twin Towers starting lineup for Auburn, this is really one of the teams that Auburn's built to go play against in that way. Georgia State's going to run a little bit more of a slow tempo. They're going to try to work the shot clock down. They're going to try to play inside out basketball. Auburn's going to have the bigs to be able to match up. Going to be very important for Dylan Cardwell to stay out of foul trouble in this game so Auburn can keep their size and keep Georgia State off of the glass, because that's going to be a big portion of how they want to stay in these games. Is they want to go inside, they want to work inside out, but then they want to be able to crash the boards and be able to get themselves additional possessions in that way. But I do expect Auburn to have the advantage on the interior. Again, Georgia State, not a prolific shot blocking team. So it's a team that Auburn can take advantage of some of the mismatches on the interior, particularly with Janai Broome being the best player in the country right now, being able to go inside versus whomever he'd like to. And it's going to be interesting to see how they try to match up. But again, I do expect some mixed coverages. Some of it they're going to try to play straight up. Some of them they're going to send double teams at them. They're going to send them from multiple places. So they're going to have to be able to be on the lookout for that sort of thing in this game. Expecting a little bit of zone in this, but I think Auburn can shoot them out of the zone, particularly when you look at how Auburn shoots at home. But let's take a look at the some deeper statistical analysis of these two teams. Let's take a look first and foremost at the defensive stats here for Georgia State versus Auburn's offense, since we're talking about shooting them out of the zone. With on the season, Auburn is getting to the free throw line at a rate of 28.3. Georgia State sending people to the free throw line at a rate of 32.5. So pretty much every 3 trips down the field, they're sending somebody to the free throw line. So this is going to be a physical game. I expect some physicality in this game, and really a lot of fouls being racked up in this game as the refs try to regulate what's happening. From the 2-point percentage, Georgia State's given up a hefty amount on the inside. So this is what I was talking about in terms of Auburn should have the advantage down there, but I do think Georgia State's going to try to play it straight up, but they are giving up some twos on the inside just because they don't really have a threatening shot blocker for the most part. So being able to get to the rim and finish around the rim is something that teams have found some proficiency in. The 3-point rate, they're giving up 41.4% on the 3-pointers, the rate at which teams are able to get off clean looks at the rim, and Auburn's shooting 41.8% threes in their trips, and they're shooting it at a rate of 38.2 on the season, which is a prolific 3-point shooting percentage. And Georgia State's given up over 30% on the season, 31.5 to be exact. As far as the effective field goal rate, again, Georgia State up above 50% on the season, that they are giving up 52.2, in fact, and Auburn is shooting it at a rate of 58.8 on the season so far. So I expect Auburn to try to lean into their efficiency a little bit, and hopefully they don't get 2-3 happy as they start to try to get the double teams down on Janai Broome. But if they're knocking them down, then it's going to be a long night for the Georgia State Panthers. Turnover percentage, Auburn's turning it over at a rate of 12.7, while Georgia State is turning teams over at a rate of 13.3. Now, when you flip that over and you take a look at the defensive stats as they go on the road, you see the story changes a little bit there. The road games so far this season, they have been on the road to Mississippi State, Jacksonville State, Kentucky, and then this will be Auburn, their upcoming one. So they've only had 3, 2 of them being SEC teams on the road so far this season. They have lost all of those road contests so far this season, and it's not been close, particularly close in any of them. So you can see when they're on the road, they are not fouling as much, but Auburn is doing a really good job of getting to the foul line or getting to the free throw line at home a little bit better than they are in general on the season. 2-point percentage, though, 68.3% is what they're surrendering on the year right now. That's not going to get it done. If you're giving up almost 70% on 2-pointers, then you're not doing a really great job of forcing tough shots there on the interior. And then when you look at the 3-point percentage, Auburn is absolutely blazing at home, 45.8% at home. And Georgia State's giving up, 45.8 is what they're shooting as far as the rate in which they're shooting. But the 3-point percentage is still up above 40 at 40.5. Now, Georgia State's allowing teams to shoot a lot of threes. They have not had a lot of teams shoot the 3 effectively against them, or not as effectively when they're on the road. 29.6%. That is a respectable 3-point percentage to give up. So that, again, I think is going to be the interesting thing. I think Georgia State's going to want to force teams, because they don't have the interior defense, to try to shoot threes over the top of their set defense. If Auburn is able to knock those threes down, get them out of some of their zone principles that they want to do, again, going to be a very long night. Effective field goal percentage, Auburn is shooting at 63% at home, which is crazy. Georgia State's giving up 58.8, but a lot of that is due to the 2-point percentages that they're surrendering. They're turning teams over at a rate of 12.8, which is okay. Auburn not giving the ball up a ton at home, a rate of 11.8. So, a lot of good things offensively there for Auburn to be able to take advantage of with this Georgia State defense that is not really, an imposing defense. They're not going to get out and force a lot of turnovers. They really want to slow possessions down. In fact, they are one of the slower pace of play teams in the country. Their adjusted tempo is at 70.5, which is, that's 75th in the nation. That's not terrible. That's about middle of the road, but they're not a team that really functions off of getting out on the break and trying to pressure and get you into transition. So I'm going to be paying close attention to the turnovers that Auburn has. Are they going to be able to stay patient within their offense, and how efficient is Auburn going to be in trying to get shots on the interior that Georgia State will surrender? When you look at the other side of this and you start talking about how Georgia State performs offensively, you look at their offense and you see that, on the season, they're doing a pretty good job of getting to the free throw line. And this is going to be, I think, the story of the game early. Fouls, and how often is Auburn putting Georgia State on the free throw line? Are they able to stay out of foul trouble? And how often is Georgia State getting to the free throw line? They're at a rate of 39.2 on the season. Auburn is sending people to the line 32.9% of the time. 2-point percentage, Auburn is keeping teams out of the paint, not surrendering a lot there. A lot of shot blocking, a lot of shot intimidation there on the inside. 42.6% what they're surrendering on the season. Georgia State's only shooting 45.8, which is respectable, but expect that to be something that Auburn's going to try to do, is make them shoot the three, even though Georgia State shoots at a decent clip, 33.5% on the season, shooting 31.8. So they don't take a lot of threes, but they hit them at a decent clip. Effective field goal percentage, though, 47.2, which is below where you really want to be as a good offensive team. So this Georgia State squad, again, they're not going to try to push it in tempo. They're going to try to play inside-out basketball. They want to really kind of muddy it up on the interior and then hopefully get you into foul trouble. They're turning it over at an 18.6% clip, while Auburn is really only forcing at a 15.2. When you look at that home versus road, though, and you take a look at what Georgia State is doing there, you see that those numbers fall a little bit on the free throw rate. And when you get into that 3-point percentage, it actually is going up. So they are shooting a little bit better on the road from three, and their effective field goal percentage a little bit better, but turning over the ball a little bit more on the road. Again, they've played against some tough teams on the road, so that contributes to it. When you look at the likes of Mississippi State, tough defensive team, Kentucky, tough athletic defensive team. So they've had some challenges on the road versus some really good defensive squads. So that is going to be why that looks that way for Georgia State. But again, I think the strategy for Georgia State, inside out, tough physical basketball, hopefully get the teams Auburn in foul trouble, and then try to lean in on what they're doing on the interior and try to get an advantage on the glass. So Auburn's big thing in this game is going to be making sure they keep Janai Broome as the center of the offense, as they have for the majority of this season, and play through him and just kind of see how Georgia State decides they want to do that. I think the other place where Auburn will have the distinct advantage is going to be in the guard play in this one. Well, the wing play, I should say. Miles Kelly, Coach Pearl confirmed, is going to be available for this game, and he's going to be a guy I think that's going to be able to attack from the wing fairly easily, as well as Chad Baker-Mazara. I expect those two guys to have really good games in this one, because I think that they should have some advantages with the length that they have and their ability to score off the bounce. That Georgia State team is going to allow you to get downhill and into the paint, not going to be intimidating a lot of those shots. So they're going to have an opportunity to finish around the rim pretty efficiently. And I expect those two guys really to have a big game in this one. So looking forward to what happens in this one between Auburn and Georgia State inside of Neville Arena. But what I want to hear from you all, How do you feel like this game is going to go? Give me some score predictions. You've seen kind of what these teams do from an average standpoint. I talked to you about what they've done against some of the Power 5 or Power 4, competition, specifically SEC competition they've gone up against. How do you think Georgia State versus Auburn is going to play out? What's your score prediction? Drop those right down there in the comment section. But before you all get out of here, make sure that you are liking this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you share the content with somebody. We'll be right back with you all after the game to do a breakdown and a reaction to everything that's going on. But I'm out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.